Okay, so in this assignment, the one that's labeled currently as week 8, you get to assignment 11, which will actually be renamed assignment 8.1. And you get a question, basically. It's not an exercise as such as that you don't have to download and do anything. Basically, take a look at the original image of this car parked curbside somewhere. It's just sitting there. Then there's the same picture, except the car has been cut out and the background has been blurred. Yeah, so it looks like the car is moving or the background behind it is sweeping by. And the third one has a similar effect, except it's the car that has a filter that makes it look like it's moving. The background's a little bit more static. And so the question now is, which, in your opinion, gives the best illusion of movement? Is it going to be the one where the car looks like it's blurry and moving, or is it the background, or would you do something else? And so discuss your opinion. Some people ask me, however, how did you get the car to look like that? And well, this is not my original assignment, so I'll show you anyway how I might get to make it look something like this. For that, I'll need this original image. I could either download it or just copy it. I right-clicked on the browser, and then I'm going to open up Photoshop and create a new file, File New, and just click on Clipboard. It's 1024 by 768, the size of the image, created. Everything else is already set up as an RGB, etc., and it fits on the window. I'm going to paste this image in. Edit, Paste, Control V is my shortcut, Command V on a Mac. And so now I have a new layer called Layer 1. I'm going to double click on that layer and I'm going to call this just Car. The background I have no need for, so I'll select it and delete it. And away it goes. Now, before I move on, I'm going to make some color corrections real quick to the file. I'm going to press Control M for my curves menu, and they appear. I'm just going to click on Auto, nothing too fancy. Click OK, and I'm going to press Control L to get my levels. I'll do the same thing with Auto, so it looks a little bit better. Maybe if we really wanted to play with the lighting, I would use Lightroom instead. But now I have one layer called Car with the car here. So basically what's going on in the other images is that this car was selected and then was cut out and put on a separate layer, so that independently of the background, it would just remain looking the same while we apply a motion to the back. And this one, similar concept, except it's the car layer that has the effect applied to it. So to take this car out, multiple ways to do it, but because this is just a short, quick presentation, what I'm going to do then is, first of all, make a copy of this layer. Multiple ways to do it. You could right click and tell it to make a duplicate of the layer, or you can simply press Control J, Command J on your Mac, and now I have a layer called Car Copy. So now I want to make a selection of the car, or I can just start to get rid of the background or something like that. The easy way to do it is to just create, you can do a new layer mask so that we can just cut it out, or you can right click on the layer and tell it to create this, convert it to a smart object. So once it's a smart object, things work a little bit different. So I can then say, when you apply the mask, I can say wherever I have black on the layer mask thumbnail on the right side of the image, I'll click on the one at the bottom to turn it off. Wherever there's black, this is going to be transparent. So I'm going to use a brush tool. And I can use a rather large one. This one's at 100 pixels right now. The hardness is kind of soft. I'll do somewhere around 20 or so. Size, let's go with something large. Not too big though. Maybe 100 was good. 140 or so should work okay. And so now I want to make sure that I have a black pen, and I'm going to start to basically just paint the area around the car. And because this will be blurry anyway, the edges don't have to be too sharp. And because we're working with a smart object, we can always go back and make some corrections to it. So just simple as that. I'm going to make the brush a little bit smaller. I'm using the left bracket key. And I'm almost there. Well, I'm going to Control Z that, just so I don't need to get rid of so many shadows. And then zoom in here and maybe apply a lighter or a smaller pen there. And I'm almost done. It's almost there. That was too much. I still want to take that off. And maybe the same thing over here. Okay. So because this is a smart object, I can start to play with it just to make sure that I'm showing you the right things. So I'll zoom out. Here's my car. If I turn on the background, everything looks hunky-dory. I'm going to make another copy of the car behind it just to have it. So I right click and tell it to do the, actually I don't have the option, or I didn't see it right away. I'm just going to press Control J and I get another car copy. This one, the one that's below the actual car, I'll tell it to go to the filter menu and then apply a blur filter, blur, and do a motion blur. I'm going to keep this at 0 because it's flat on the street. If I changed it at any other direction, then I'd get into some kind of trouble there, but I just go into 0. And the distance, it's up to you, you know, how fast do you want it to be going. Something like that actually demonstrates a little bit of motion is good. The distance is basically how far away the pixels are stretched out. So I was at 800 and something. And I'll keep it around that range there. I'll click OK. So now this is only being applied to the background. And the car in front, because it's masked and it's a smart object, I can still go back there and tell it, since this area is not so blurry, I can tell it to add more to the mask. I'll click on my pen tool, and with the black ink, I'll increase the size of the pen just so that it's even more blurry, and then that way it's not so bad. It might go like it hit 88 miles an hour and go back in time a little bit or something, and that should be fine, I think. So press Control 0 to zoom out, and there's my car. It's a little bit zoomed out. It's not the best and doesn't necessarily look like the one in the subject with the assignment, but it's close enough, and it's just a quick way of showing you what's going on. I could also take this layer, the one with the copy that is just a car, or supposedly just a car, and press Control J on it as well to copy it. I have a third copy now. And then on this layer, apply, if I go to filter and tell it to do a blur and do a motion blur, apply the motion blur to the car itself. So then it truly looks like maybe it's out of time. I'll click OK, and I'll go straight into my layer thumbnail, and because I control the what part of the car I can actually see, I can tell it to then, with the same tool, just make it larger. I'm going to start to make this really blurry so that it looks like it's just a cloud on top of it. The hardness, I'll take it down to almost 10 and start to sort of fan out the front of the car. A little bit like that, and then maybe a little bit along the bottom. And so then parts of the car look like they're in motion, and the background is definitely just way fast, and maybe there's a little bit of motion that you can see here. I guess I could also bring my tire or the wheel in here a little bit more into play by adding a little bit of black there, and then I get that. I don't know how well that works. I'll just keep it blurry. So at any rate, this is a quick demonstration on how to use layers and use the motion blur rather, to give the illusion of movement. And hopefully this answered the question, how did the car get to move? And now your job is to tell me, what do you think? Does the motion blur work at all? Does the car need to be moving? Does the background need to be moving? Which one works better for you? And specifically in your case of your banner, what could you have done differently in your banner to apply a motion blur to your subjects?